Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Since we had no introduction, obviously we are two people who need no introduction. That's what I'm deduced. I'm very thrilled to be interviewing Peter Schjeldahl, and that is who you are, correct? Good. I don't know why that got a laugh. There must be something I'm doing that I'm not aware of. I thought I would start by giving you an example of why we love Peter Schjeldahl's writing. And I thought I would read you something that Peter Schjeldahl did not write as an example. Remember, Peter did not write this, and I don't even know who did. But it's from an art essay. Wolf Suarez explores the psychology of built space and perceptions of place while re-engaging notions of site specificity. Approaching fragility and impermanence, the material, textural, and odoriferous, with the same complexity as site and scale, Wolf Suarez's sculptures operate phenomenologically. The exhibition space reformed into a temporal and experiential zone for the viewer's body. Wolf Suarez negotiates a tension between presence and non-presence, dispelling notions of reduction in what the artist terms a symbolic abundance through absence. I'll read you something that Peter wrote about Chardin, the great 18th century still life painter. The philosophe and pioneering art critic Diderot reported that at the Salon of 1773, Jean-Baptiste Greuze, the leading genre painter of the day, was observed to pause before a Chardin and then to pass on, heaving a deep sigh. I imagine Greuze thinking, some guys have all the luck. That painting, The Jar of Olives, is not at the Met, but any of the dozen that are could have stung Greuze equally. I recalled this anecdote while noting an astonishing color, a smoldering orange, that sounds a deep bass note in The Jar of Apricots, 1758. Were I a rival of Chardin, I might briefly consider hanging myself. I think that's a good example of why we enjoy Peter's writing. I'm curious, how did you escape art speak?
By being utterly unqualified for it. I mean, I have a high school diploma, and I dropped out of college in the early 60s, and I never took an art course. Art speak, I mean, I make a distinction between academic writing and the kind of writing I do. Is academic writers write for people who have to read them, right? So, and if they show any style or flair, their colleagues are just going to get impatient, you know. If I don't show style and flair, I starve. So, it's...
Do you think there's any value to what we'll call art speak or academic?
Well, anything specialized. I think, you know, I mean, every specialty has a speak. I mean, you hear auto mechanics talking to each other, not to mention computer geeks, you know, where you understand one word out of four, and there's a kind of wild poetry to it, you know, that's enjoyable. You know, whether art is a discipline that demands that kind of precision. I mean, basically what jargon is you take a word and you strip it of all its connotations. So you make it mean only one thing, which you have to have trained to know, and then it's like moving pieces around a chessboard. It's hardly language at all, but it's you know, it's for the initiates.
Do you think that you're, you know, an outside, a sort of a sophisticated art writer would look down on you because they can understand it?
I've been called a populist in a bad way, an anti-intellectual, several times. I mean, I've been swatted at by academics. You know, I mean, if they did more than swat, they would lose all their dignity. I mean, actually. But a good luck to everybody. You know. It's,
yeah. Well, I know you started as a poet, and I have to get through this issue of clarity in your writing because to me it's so important, and there's so few good art writers who can write with clarity, and thankfully a lot of them are in New York. I think of Deborah Solomon, I think of Adam Gopnik, but they're not often writing about art on a regular basis. And I'm wondering how you arrived at it.
Well, I mean, I was
especially being a poet.
Well, I was a very obscure, you know, pre-postmodernist poet, which you couldn't have understood a word. But
good.
My hero was well. Actually, that's not true. I did tumble into clarity when I stopped trying to be John Ashbery and tried to be Frank O'Hara, and a couple of failures. But when I dropped out of school in the Midwest and I worked my way east as a newspaper reporter, so, I mean, I think my most intense writing lessons came in city rooms from old, fat, burned out, you know, reporters, copy editors with cigars who took your copy and went like that and threw it back at you. You know. So
do they do that at the New Yorker? Are you kidding me?
No. Well, in a very delicate and refined manner, but it's. No, it's the same. Editing's editing. So anyway, I was a poet, and I had gotten a job in a newspaper across the river in Jersey City, and I came into the city and I met the poets on the Lower East Side, and in the '60s there was still the poetry world still spilled into the art world, and you know, most artists didn't have any money then.
That's the way it should
you won't
be,
believe
I think.
this,
Yeah.
But, and I started writing art criticism because all the poets did, and then I spent a year in Paris as a starving poet because coming from Minnesota, I got the idea that Paris was where it was at. You know, our information was roughly 20 years out of date, which is about the lag.
So you time traveled.
Yeah, so I went over there, and it was in Paris in 1964-65 was a dump. I mean, and there was nothing going. Well, I went over thinking I spoke some French, and the French explained to me that I did not speak French, and I believed them. So
they do that really, really happily
oh boy,
too.
they're good at that. Oh Jesus. And then I had a couple of experiences which I think we're going to illustrate.
We're gonna talk about that, but I just wanted to say that I think of you as before we get on to the good stuff. I wanted to talk. I just wanted to say that your use of language, you know, I'm not denigrating this style of writing because you use words so beautifully, and it's not to say you use you know, simple little words. Often I run into words that I have to look up, and which is I just want to kill you when I do that. But but they're beautiful, beautiful use of language. There's a beautiful use of you know, street language and great use of metaphor and you know, a great use of slang. So it really enlivens your essays. And by the way, I was thinking, I don't really think of you as an art critic. I really think of you as an art essayist that really enriches my experience. It's not like I read you to find out if someone is good or bad. I really read it to enrich my art experience, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you and good night. So let's go through your transformation, should we say, from poet to aesthete, or
well, I think I was always an aesthete, which my report cards from elementary school almost always had a teacher writing, "Peter is too sensitive." And I could only agree. But I grew up in small towns. And
did you have access to art in Minnesota?
No.
No access to art?
Almost none, yeah. No.
But so your was it a sudden splash, or did you see art in books?
Well, actually I did. I mean, this is the kind of thing that when I was going to college, I managed 3 years at Carleton College in Minnesota, at the end of which I was glad to leave and they were glad to see me go. I mean, it was early 60s. We were kind of a little ahead of the curve, but we didn't know it. And I was flunking out. That mattered. But no, I'd gotten up to the Walker Art Center, and I remember seeing a performance of Robert Rauschenberg and John Cage and Merce Cunningham, which was stunning. I mean, it was like, I didn't know what the hell I'd seen, but I knew it was great, and I knew it was like nothing in Minnesota. And I think at that point I was definitely going to get out of there.
So you knew that something else was going on.
There was something else out there, yeah.
And tell us about your epiphany. Should we put the Warhol up and take a look at it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there it is.
Well, that's a beautiful Warhol,
yeah,
one of the great early ones.
Well, actually,
yeah, there we go.
Well, actually, flip back. Flip back to the previous one.
The Piero della Francesca. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, this is.
Here we go. I can see it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to crack my neck.
Anyway, and during this year in Paris, I ended up hitchhiking down through Italy and meeting the brother of a friend from Minneapolis. But the brother had living there, and he was a painter and around Siena, and teaching English, and a total enthusiast for early Renaissance painting. And I went on the back of his Vespa all over the little hill towns, and it changed my life. George Schneemann, his name was. He died about 1.5 years ago. Great loss. But he took me on the Piero tour, which, when you go, it's from Arezzo down to San Sepolcro, and part way is, I'm going to try to make this not too long, but it's a delicious story.
It's really, that's why they came, so
okay.
It's fine.
Well,
yeah. What time does the movie start? Sorry.
It's a little town called Monterchi, a little hill town, which had only really one painting in it, and at that point it was in a little cemetery chapel. It looked like a tool shed in a cemetery, and we happened to show up just as it was open for an hour a day or something, and the back wall of it is this painting, which
approximately how big is this, just so we get a relative?
Oh gosh, 7 feet.
Okay, it's not tiny, it's big.
It's a fresco, and it had the tent had a dome. It was still, you could still see it. As when they took it out, I think that just disintegrated from water damage of centuries. It now has a little museum to itself. But and it was a hot day in August in Italy, and somebody was droning on in Italian about it, and George told me a little sentimental story about it, which I've since learned can't possibly be true, but that Piero had when he made it big in Florence, had a girlfriend in Monterchi who he couldn't acknowledge, who got pregnant and died in childbirth. And he, as penance, came back and in this little place painted this fresco of the pregnant Madonna's unusual theme. But, and that made me cry. And, but then something happened looking at this picture. It's like, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Actually, I've been looking at the reproduction of it a lot. But I like to say that it's as if I died and came back to life a minute later, somebody different. It was like whatever I was going to do would have something to do with that, whatever that was.
But did you have any education in early Renaissance painting?
No,
This is an out of the blue, because for most people this is this is a cipher. I mean, this is some kind of something we don't identify with in our temporary lives.
But it's something. And we'll flip. We've already seen the Warhol in 1 second is enough to kind of get it. Later that year, that same summer, I went into a show at Sonnenbend Gallery in Paris that was all of Andy's flower paintings, which were new in these acrid chemical colors, and the whole gallery is full of them. And I went, wrong city, get back. New York was where it was at. But the more I'm thinking about these two, just because I know we were going to look at them, go back to the Piero. The more I think, they're kind of the same. I mean, they have a quality.
Wait, did you say they're kind of the same?
Yeah. Well, that is, they have a quality of announcement. It's like the new. I mean, this was 1460. This was new, and the kind of the mirror image angels like sweeping aside the leaves of the tent and revealing this secret within a secret. The colors, I'm sure, were much more brilliant. I mean, that was all lapis lazuli, ultramarine. But notice that the angels are literally from the same drawing cartoon that he flipped, and then the balance of the colors between that sort of oxide red and the green emerald, and it's sudden, bam, and there she is. She's not a god. She's a girl, and by the way, the posture is so great. You notice that with the hand on the hip, it's like having been acquainted with some pregnant women. There's that tendency to put your hand back there to, counteract the weight, on the aching back, and then that delicate little gesture in the opening of her dress. It's almost like sort of indicating what's within. So it's like she's in the tent, and then there's the dress which echoes the tent, and then it's extremely symmetrical and sudden, and there was the new thing of gravity. It's like Piero's the first painter where even after Giotto, where things don't only stand on the ground, they stand smack on the ground. It's like there's a weight. And,
but these are thoughts of a very sophisticated art essayist looking back. I'm wondering about that moment.
Well, I don't know. I think it was the poignance of it, the poignance of this girl, and I don't know. I had no way of articulating it myself.
I'm looking at
but
it.
But also I'd been looking at a lot of frescoes and a lot of Renaissance painting, and I think it was like when the flash.
Now let's look at that Warhol again, because, I've always had, incredible problems with these because they look so dead to me. They're just, I like them. I really like them, but I wouldn't linger.
Well, I think I linger just drinking the color. I mean, he's a great colorist, and let's see, was it Kenneth Clark, the great art historian, said you can enjoy a pure aesthetic emotion for as long as you can enjoy the smell of a fresh cut orange. It's like it's that, and the first time it's like there's a moment of bliss. You smell it again, and it's just an orange. But I think Warhol renews that constantly. Also, just I don't know. He clipped this image out of the corner of a black and white seed catalog, and made hundreds of paintings of it with the grain that came from making the silk screen, that sort of grainy grass. Which I think, back of the Piero, it's like that sort of quilted interior of the tent. it's I don't know.
But that was not your first Warhol you had seen.
No.
So you had some kind of.
I thought he was really cool, you know. But I hadn't had. This was like the first real aesthetic hit. It's just like, you know, there's not much there, but it's like, it makes me. I mean, what else would I want? You know, I feel like that's, you know, I am happy, and you know, I walk out and I remember that I'm unhappy, but it's.
And thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, it's.
So you're seeing it as color, like.
Well, also they,
like
you know, in relation to photography. It's in relation to like something pre-existing, something beyond humble, below humble. You know, it's like something that is really not. It's like art is making something out of nothing. You know, and you know, in his great period in the early '60s, I mean, Andy did it again and again, and in a way that complicated the whole idea of art making for people ever since. I mean, it's like.
Well, when we're done, we're going to give you the slide.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk. You're doing so well. I hate to sort of change the subject, but you know, once you very cordially invited a few people to the Met to view the conservation room, and I'm leading to something else actually. But and there were several masterpieces, the Aikens rowers in the room, but also there was this incredible self-portrait by Rembrandt back there being conserved, and there was a very you know, real magic moment when you're standing next to an unframed canvas. I really had that sort of corny feeling, you know, when you first start to like paintings, which is, gosh, he was really standing right here when he painted. Wow. And I really had that feeling because those brushstrokes were so alert and alive. But I know that you're sort of a master of the frick, and you like to go there. And there's two Rembrandts there. We have those.
There are three, actually.
There's three, yeah. Well, not anymore. I actually took one. But we won't show them yet. I'm just curious about, first of all, I know one of them is the Polish writer, and one is a self-portrait, I believe. Now, you're in love with the Polish writer, and then the Rembrandt Society, the Rembrandt, what's it called, the committee?
I'm sorry?
You know, the Rembrandt committee, the people who
decommissioned
all the...
Yeah, there was this bunch of scholars who were starting in the 60s, you know, decided to, I mean, well, at the beginning of the 19th century, there were thousands of Rembrandts. You know, now there are very few hundred. And you know, the attributions were chipped away. And in most cases now, I think we're educated to see those differences. But they really got fanatical, and for a while they were questioning the Polish writer.
Right.
They surrendered on that. I mean, it's like
they gave.
I mean, my line on that is if that's not Rembrandt, we'd know who it was by, and he'd be as famous as Rembrandt. So
okay.
It's an odd subject, but.
Let's take a look at that
okay.
Polish writer and those two Rembrandts that I know you enjoy. There's the Polish writer.
Yeah.
There it is.
You know,
I have to do that. He's right.
It's a slide. By the way, when I talk, I never use slides because I think they're.
You what?
I never use slides when I talk.
Oh, you never use slides?
No.
Oh,
but now I'm doing it here.
Okay. Well, we can.
Okay. But
I can act out the paintings if you want. Be happy to do that.
Yeah, well, people like slides, and so I shouldn't have said that.
No.
When you go to see this picture in person, which is the only way to see
This is the last slide we're going to show.
Huh?
That's the last slide we're going to show. But I have some other slides that are kind of interesting. I also have some slides from my vacation I want to show. Go ahead.
We need them, Steve.
Yeah.
We need them. It's a young warrior armed to the teeth on a horse that's sort of dog-like. I mean, it's sinewy war horse at dusk or dawn. I think it's dawn. He looks fresh. And checking the horizon for what's to occur that day. Actually, there was a kind of Victorian sentimentality about the painting at one time. It's about the journey of life. He doesn't even have his lunch. Okay, so all he's got is killing implements, and it usually, I mean, with Rembrandt, and I love looking at Rembrandt. I like talking about Rembrandt because there's always a story, and it's like it's never the obvious story, and it's usually something very simple. If you look long enough, you get it. I think he didn't know when he started what exactly interested him about the subject, and he discovered it in the middle. I think in this case, and I don't know, Steve, what you can see from the slide, but it comes down to the face of this young guy and a difference between his eyes and his mouth. It's like he's quite young, his eyes are hard, his mouth is soft. I think it's about the last flicker of his youth. Here's a kid who is somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's sweetheart. And his eyes are the eyes of somebody who was going to be a killer that day. And at the end of the day, his mouth will match.
I'm interested that you analyze this picture in terms of its narrative story. And but I know you also approach abstract painting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think actually all paintings have stories. I mean, first of all, I think science proves now that, in fact, narrative is how our minds work. I mean, how our memory works, certainly. We have a feeling and then make a story to match it, and that's what we remember. We remember the story. And it brings with it, sort of sensuous associations. I mean, abstract painting, what happened with modern art is that the intention to force narrative out of painting was successful, and the story reformed around the painting. It became art criticism. So you have the story of a style, the story of getting rid of story. That's a good story, and I think that reached a point of collapse in the '60s. I mean, I think it's like where suddenly you realize that all figurative paintings are abstract, and all abstract paintings are a kind of figure, and you can make a story. If the story isn't in the picture, it's around the picture. And we should relax.
I want to get back to this in a minute, but it brings up a point. Do you think Jackson Pollock became his own dead end? That there weren't any branches off Jackson Pollock?
Well, in terms of art history, it's. I mean, I think he had a revolutionary effect, but you couldn't do what he did again, or you could, and it would be kind of pointless.
I'm going to stop doing that then. Doing that a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got that up.
It would just look like a Jackson Pollock. There's almost
except I mean, I don't know. There's a specificity to his work. I mean, it's great, and it was the culmination of what I think he'd been wanting to do his whole life, which is to like get some relation between the surface and depths. He wanted depth, he wanted surface, and he was tormenting it. And by the way, you go to the de Kooning show.
We want to talk about that.
At the Modern, which was also his ambition. I think it was Gorky's ambition. It was sort of the ambition of the American abstract painters. And And de Kooning could do it because he could draw like a son of a bitch, you know. And Pollock thought he couldn't draw at all. He could actually draw quite well, but he was a duffer compared to de Kooning. And it's almost like he discovered a way. He discovered a way to like just to break contact with the canvas, you know, to draw in the air over the canvas, and then to respond to what happened, and you get this astounding experience that, you know, had never really been, you know, realized in painting or anywhere. I think there's a kind of brutality, factuality to it, and a kind of ethereal poetry at the same time. I think it's like a dog peeing on a wall and the music of the spheres, you know, and you can't. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Pollock, you know, the first time I really walked up to a Pollock, I was shocked. I mean, it's like, oh, it's so raw, you know, and it is so raw. I mean, also you get the sense of, I mean, the emotion is his ambition. It's just his desperation that this fucker work, you know, and you go up there, that's what you feel, you know, but then you back up and it, you know, it opens out. I mean, it also is a new kind of looking. You know, you can't. I mean, looking straight at a Pollock would be like leaning on a wall that wasn't there. You know, you fall through it. Mm-hmm. You had to dilate, but that was true also of Roscoe and Newman and the other New York big picture guys, which Warhol, by the way, took over, and.
Took over in what sense?
He took over the New York big painting.
Oh, I see, yeah.
You know, and it's like you think of a Barnett Newman with Elvis Presley on it. You know, it's like it was the chassis, right? And then he gave you something sensational to look at.
Was part of abstract expressionism, was part of its breakthrough size?
Size was indispensable, yeah, mm-hmm. to that vision.
Now, I felt, when I saw the Jackson Pollock retrospective, I felt there was a very clear feeling of struggle and breakthrough. Mm-hmm. And then again, a different kind of struggle, mm-hmm. and then a breakthrough. That you could really almost see him, these tremendous successes of a certain kind, and then this sort of mess, or, you know, just working.
It's an incredible drama. I mean, it's like, Picasso said to Van Gogh that it's the drama of the man, mm-hmm. that seizes us in Van Gogh, and I think that's true in Pollock.
But do you see that in de Kooning, in like the de Kooning retrospective?
Yeah, but it's so fluid. I mean, he's got the ability to draw him and paint himself out of any corner, you know, and it's like, I mean, he's making difficulties for himself because he's exasperated with his own facility, and it's not the same kind of drama. It's not as life or death as it was for Pollock, but it's. But boy, that show is heaven. I mean,
I know. I was walking through it, and you're going from the, you know, those women pictures from the 50s into the next sort of landscape pictures, from the early 60s and late 50s. I thought, did you leave something out? You know, where he had to like figure this out.
Well, I think I said that when I wrote about the show, it was too small. I mean, it's like, mm-hmm. You know, you get 3 or 4 or 5 pictures from one period that maybe he made 80 pictures, you know, and he did not repeat himself. I mean, there is, you know.
So when we're looking at that period, I want to get back to this. Let me get back to this.
Okay.
Because here you approach this picture, and the first thing you described was its narrative. Mm-hmm. So what's the next thing you do? Interested in your process.
It took me, I mean, first of all, I looked at it for years before I developed a story. And by the way, anyone gets to argue. I mean, maybe I'm making this up. I don't know. It seems like anything we have a deep experience of, we have some kind of story, you know, and I don't. I hope I never imply that you have to have the story. I tell myself, so like it for yourself.
When you first approached this picture, you were not looking at it narratively. That's something you came up with.
Well, I was. I
Yeah,
mean, I was thinking, what's going on here? You know, and who is this? And it's actually there's some suggestion that there was an opera in Amsterdam at the time called Tamerlane. It was about maybe Eastern European, you know, Eurasian warriors were a fashion at the time, and Rembrandt was very sensitive to all that, responsive to all that.
I think there's two men inside that horse. But so now you've analyzed the narrative. Now do you walk up close? Do you look at the brushwork?
Oh sure,
yeah,
sure. You go in. Also, it's like maybe it was Frank O'Hara's favorite painting.
By the way, this is a big painting, we should say.
Yeah, but
I think it's important.
I think there's a certain segment of the New York population that really enjoys the line of the butt, which the guy.
Of the guy?
Yeah.
Oh, because I know another population that would...
No, that's southern Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean that's gratuitous. He didn't have to tuck the coat in that way. But it's a very sexy picture. I think that, you know, the horse is, you know, I don't know, depending.
Let's look at the other. Mind if we show another slide, Peter? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's look at the other Rembrandt, because I know you have a rapport with these two pictures.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I like.
I think I have that outfit.
Huh?
I think I have that outfit.
Oh yeah. You got the smock. This is Rembrandt when he's 52 years old, which was old in those days, and I think, and it's a period when he was bankrupt. You know, his career was in ruins, and he wasn't well, and I think what comes across from him, he's disgusted. He knows he's the best painter in the world, although Velázquez in Spain, you know, might argue with that. But he doesn't know what that's worth. You know, and he dresses himself up as, you know, this sort of potentate. He's always dressing himself up and people up. He had a big wardrobe in his studio. And he's got a caul stick that you use for painting as a scepter. But he's, you know, he's sort of old and fat and sick, and he's wearing this weird smock, which is belted really high. And it looks like he's got breasts. You know, I think it's like he's a sort of crumbling maternal figure, you know. And after some years, what went off like a bomb for me was when I looked at it and thought, where are his knees? Can you see his knees? It's, there's a faint indication, but look where the arms of the chair come. I mean, it's like smack up to the picture plane, you know. It's like if he painted his knees, they would be in the room, you know. They would be outside the painting. And I'm saying, well, what's my feeling about that? I'm sitting in his lap. We're sitting in his lap. You know, it's like we're up on him, and it's almost like that sort of brings the maternal. He's like saying, I'm no use to myself anymore. Eat me. I mean, you know, if you have any use for me, just eat me. And also note the details, like the black beret. By the way, with the cleaning, there are certain things that became apparent. You never saw that beret. It was all this black background. But the shadow that falls directly across his eyes. You know, it's a kind of a death thing. Also, I don't know if you can see in the slide, but you got to see the picture.
We have the picture right here. Check it out.
Yeah. Jose, bring it on. There's, in the pupil of the eye, his right eye, the one on the left, there is one dot of white paint. Bing. And it's like, and to me, looking at the picture, it ignites the whole picture. It's like, flips it on. And, but again, it's like, with narrative in Rembrandt, it's like every stroke he makes is narrative, and every bit of story is done in and with and through paint, and like that.
Well, here's something that completely fascinates me, and I find in the sort of contemporary art world that the knowledge seems to be finite and limited to only contemporary art, and your knowledge is vast, and you're having to move through Renaissance to contemporary to modern to 19th century to 18th century. And how do you? Is it a flip book?
Well,
in your mind?
No. Well, I approached art with a uniform ignorance of everything. So and then through writing, everything I know I learned on a deadline. And I've been doing it 45 years. So it's like, you get intensively learn about this and intensively, and then it's kind of like becomes a quilt, sort of like patches start overlapping. There's still holes that would astonish an art history sophomore. But, one of the things I like to say is that contemporary art for me means every work of art that exists right now. Whether it's 5,000 years old or 5 minutes old. It's contemporary. It's now. It's relating to us. There were many people for hundreds of thousands of years who had history with it and experience with it. Something? They're dead. They're not around. We are not intimidated by them. It's ours. It's ours for our moment. And any really good artists I know have always, they don't have to shift gears from contemporary to Egyptian, or it's all art, and it's all made by human beings, and human beings have not really changed very much at all.
How do you prevent yourself from old fogeyism, where you just suddenly no, that doesn't live up to this? How did that little thing can't possibly? Being overwhelmed by so many old masters.
Yeah. Well, it's
or modern masters.
Yeah. Well, it's so I was praising a contemporary painter, and somebody said to me, "Well, he's no Titian," and I said, "Well, he's no new Titian." I said, "What? The old one wore out? We still." No, we want. We are. Our lives are contemporary, our moment is contemporary. We want our art, and we will have our art, and maybe we feel like it's not very good. Well, maybe we're not very good, we're living one of those eras. You can't all live in the Renaissance or 1890s Paris. But I like to say everything has a value if you know what it is, if you know what the thing is. It's like, and I don't know. It's I think as I get older, and I get older and older, when I'm going out for pleasure, I'm generally going to go to the Frick or the Met, or I'm going to see something old that holds up for me. But I don't think any go through Chelsea. I don't think anybody's wasting their life. And now you see something sensational, something new. And there's something. Well, I got really excited this summer about Ryan Trecarton, who's a video artist at a big show at PS1. These crazy videos, of him and his wacky friends, and incredibly fast cutting, speeded up voices, and it's like it made me feel a zillion years old, and and it's it's not for me. It's like if I'm not I don't know what to do with that. But I registered, and maybe I'm wrong, but that it's really good, really new, really refreshing, really cuts through a lot of the sort of stagnation of the market and the institutions, and it seemed, and it's like, I've got a grandson now. It's 5 years old. Right? It's like, I mean, other people have said that when they had a grandchild, that they had the thought, okay, I can die now. I'd rather not, but it's okay. The story goes on. I've seen the next chapter, and in a way, that's how I felt about Tricarton.
Well, and in rereading your essays, you're a critic or essayist who is not afraid to recant. I've read a couple of times you said, I didn't like this artist. It's not that you wrote a bad review of them, but you said, I used to not like them, and now this second show, I finally have come to terms with this. And I find that art is sometimes best as it works slowly on you. And as a collector, I know the contemporary art scene was very frustrating to me. It's this, you got to know now. You got to know now. I said, well, I can't.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, and I heard some big auction guy saying, I can walk into a room and see a work of art and tell you in 5 seconds whether it's any good or not. It's like, no, he can't. I mean, he can walk in and he can say, I've seen this before. And it resembles something that other people think is good more than what they think is bad, but they haven't seen any damn thing. It's like, I think, well, first of all, I think our automatic response to anything new is going to be negative. I mean, it's unless we're crazy, because the economy of our personalities is built around what we know and how it fits together, and something new challenges that unity, and we're going to try to resist it, and that's why I say, it's like somebody, I went to looked at that, I hated it. Well, I said, well then, yeah, and then, it's like, yeah, you're going to hate it first, and then stick around, have another reaction. Maybe you'll hate it more, but you will have learned something about it and about yourself. I mean, it's about us. It's not, art doesn't change, we do. So, so that's normal.
I'm just going to change the subject a bit, because I read actually a speech that you delivered. I think it was either a graduating class or an art student's class, and I don't know whether to read just a paragraph from it, because it's like a pet peeve of mine. I'll just start with an anecdote. I was I think it was in Vancouver, and I went to they have a beautiful ethnological museum there, and there was an artist having a show whom I didn't know, and then on the wall was the artist's statement. And I read the artist statement, and it was anyway. I just will read something that Peter wrote, if I can find it. Oh yes, about the artist statement. Would you rather just talk, or have me read what you wrote?
Music to my ears.
Okay. Okay. To beat up on he's talking to students, of course. To beat up on a specific example, we live in the age of an educational abomination from hell, the artist's statement. An artist's statement is a batch of required thinking, which purports to be about the inspired doing of something, but which replaces it. The art-schooled art world is mad for intellectual hooks. These leapfrog from an idea, sail clear over the sweat and bother of actual creation, and land in forensic analysis, which some dismal pictures or objects have been devised to illustrate. A hook may get you into the art game. It will also digest you. You will then be excreted out, at best as fertilizer for next year's crop of artist statements. More likely, you will have been just another silly fart dispersed on the breeze. Attention, artists. Perhaps you employ language in your work. You may be highly literate, but you don't have to say what your art means or even is about. Furthermore, don't do that. It's my job. I love that. Oh, by the way, I have to ask you a question. That's not my phone ringing. That's my clock ticking, because I want to. It's not my phone. It's a timer, and I have it on silence. Shut up. Just so we know, we don't want to go on too long, even though I could go on all night. But I have to ask you about a comment you said in passing one time, and I thought, if I ever interview him, I'm going to ask him about that. And just in passing, we were talking about art. I think it was at your house and dinner, and you said, well, Cézanne doesn't cut it. You remember saying that?
Boy.
And then I think you said it again in another form.
Oh.
Am I just wrong, or?
Well, I think I refined that view somewhat. But I did. I wrote about the Cézanne card player show. I mean, I have trouble with Cézanne. I mean, he is great by the major standard of greatness, which is that he changed. It's like a good artist gets in people's heads. A great artist gets in artists' heads. I mean, Cézanne basically invented the modern art attitude. And de Kooning, by the way, always was pissed about that. He said it's like he said Cézanne's great, but he's great back. They got it backwards. It's like he's great in relation to what he comes from. And which is Renaissance and Baroque painting, and they made him be this tool and die, inventor of for Cubism, and I don't know. He's an absolutely fascinating figure, and I've had extremely strong positive feelings about Cézanne, but it's like there's something medicinal about him. I mean, there's something about you can't. You talked about, well, you stand in front of a painting and you feel like the painter was right there painting it. I think that's part of the glory of painting. I mean, I feel like I try to become the painter that is in my mind. It's like why would I have done that if I did that? And it's like an escape from myself. It's a vacation from myself. But with Cézanne, that's the only way you get in. It's the only way you get in. It's just like, because he put down a stroke, he was entirely dissatisfied with it. That was true for that, and then he had to put in another one, and it's like hand over hand, and it's I don't know. I mean, I have had so many people beat me down on this discussion that.
Well, this leads to something I'm fascinated with, because I get a big thrill out of what I'll call, not to insult them, but grade B artists. Mm-hmm. I really like grade B artists, and I like, and I don't mean to give them a grade, but just in terms of Picasso, and then there's somebody else. Oh no, well, a steady diet of masterpieces makes you fat and gives you gout. You can't be eating the beef Wellington for breakfast. Yum yum. Maybe you can.
No, I mean, I think I think part of the problem is the masterpiece thing. As once said, the masterpieces of Meso-Antarctic lint or something. It'd be like, we all see these banners at the Metropolitan. It's that.
I got to write
that pretty
down.
Pretty good. It's like, it seems to me that for every masterpiece there has to be a certain quantity of pretty good art. A really good, bigger quantity of pretty good, bigger quantity of barely passable. I mean, and that if you love art, you're going to be interested in everything, including the bad. I mean, it's like you learn a lot more from bad art than from good. I mean, you learn from good art that you can't do it and you don't understand it. From bad art, you see where it breaks. You see, it doesn't come together. You can take it apart. And I think I don't know any artist who has not enjoyed does not enjoy talking about a bad artist. I mean, it's like you start out about how bad they are, and you keep talking, and in 10 minutes you feel like you love them, you know. Yeah, and the little minor paintings in big museums, I mean, I find them, I mean, some days I'm just not in the mood for a masterpiece, you know, I'm feeling fragile, you know. It's like, you know, you take some little minor thing that nobody has looked at in, you know, if it had a timer on it, it'd be like, you know, 89 days and 3 hours and 2 minutes, you know, and you got it absolutely to yourself, you know, and that's a joy, and that's one of the things I love about your collection.
Thank you.
You know,
thank you very much.
He's a very good collector, and by the way, I think
I'm going to lower the price of admission.
But I think I always enjoy art in private collections more than, I mean, museums are meat racks. I mean, you know, things are there because of committee decisions over, you know, and you walk in and they're all ranked and it's all thought out and everything's cold, you know, and so you spend energy warming them up, and you can do that. You just walk up to it and, you know, forget about the wall labels and the acoustic guides and just start looking, but you know, you walk into a collection, a good collection, and everything's warm. I mean, everything's pre-loved, everything's turned on already, and it's that's the great thing about the Frick. One of the great things about the Frick.
I don't want to go on too long because we want to take some questions. But I thought we were going to do something. Let's do our little fun thing just for a second. We'll do it very quickly. Yeah. First of all, I'll put on this hat. No, I thought, you know, you had such a charming essay on Norman Rockwell. Let me find it. I'll just read the first sentence, which I liked so much. Here it is. Oh, what luck. I grew up in small towns in the 1940s and 50s, and I remember the power of Saturday evening post covers by Norman Rockwell. Extracted from the mailbox, they went off in one's hands like charm bombs. And I thought it'd be interesting, you know, Norman Rockwell is such a complicated subject because he's such a good painter and you know, and sort of a bad artist, you might say.
Well, by the way, I remember visiting Bill de Kooning once, and one of the few times I visited him, but he, and I was sort of young and snobby as you have to be when you're young to, you know, cover how scared you are. But he had a big Norman Rockwell book on the coffee table, and I said, "Norman Rockwell, Bill?" And he said, "Yes, Norman Rockwell." And he said, "Come here." And he made me sit down, and he opened up, and he gave me a big magnifying glass and made me look down in the corner of one of the pictures where you could see the brushwork, and he said, "Abstract Expressionism." You know.
By the way, I want to take that back about calling Norman Rockwell a bad artist. I just mean in sort of
Well, he was a popular artist. He was.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Well, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was a sort of thematic illustrator at a time when the modern magazine exploded. You know, and he was. I mean, the prejudice against him in the art world was partly, I think, because you read. You know, the Clement Greenberg's essay from the 30s, Avant-Garde and Kitsch, you know, where he practically says that if, you know, Walt Disney and Norman Rockwell are Mussolini and Hitler, you know, against, you know, it's like, no, I mean, there was a real fear. There was a fear of the juggernaut of popular culture, you know, and you know, and by the time you get to Andy, we're over it, you know, we didn't have that problem.
But Norman Rockwell also never really claimed to be what you call a fine artist. He claimed to be an illustrator.
Well, and he loved Picasso, and he in the 20s, when he's had enough money, he moved to Paris to be a serious painter. At the end of 6 months, he said, "I'm kidding myself. You know, this is not going to happen." So I went back to doing the
But
cover.
Anyway, the fun game was let's look at the Norman Rockwell we have.
Okay.
And, you know, charming picture. And then I thought we'd just contrast this. This is an imperfect comparison But another person who painted American genre scenes like this, could you look at the Edward Hopper? Perfect. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, another girl.
Yeah.
His wife, Jo, Edward
Yeah.
Edward Hopper's deal with his wife is that he could paint as many nudes as he wanted as long as he always used her. I mean, they're both, was it two females contemplating
Right.
something beyond. She's contemplating a day which is probably not terribly promising, but...
I think this is a perfect illustration of a comment you made about Rockwell. You said, you talked about, I love this sentence, I can think of good reasons to despair of Rockwell's art, but first, certain bad reasons must be knocked down. And then you go on to like bad reasons. And then you sort of conclude over here. And here we come to what I dislike about him. The absolute absence of mystery in his art makes me sick. And I think you can compare those two pictures and know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and there's abundant mystery in this picture.
Yes.
And
let's go back to the Rockwell for a second, because you pointed out something to me that,
Yeah, that's really close to a really good painting, but then she has a goddamn movie magazine open on her lap, okay? So we know what she's thinking. She's comparing herself to the movie magazine. Isn't that cute? And but that, but again, I also say that's his ethos of illustration. That nothing in the picture can be without a visible reason.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is thought out, in advance. So no one feels dumb or confused. It's like, and it's democratic. He's a great. My friend Dave Hickey, the great critic, who wrote a wonderful essay on Rockwell as a history painter, as a democratic history painter. It's like, with all of his pictures, he sort of brilliantly saw that all of Rockwell's pictures dramatize moments of mild discomfort, of like slight awkwardness with an indication that it's okay. I think he has a particularly great analysis. There's one of an old lady and a little boy in a train station coffee, dive, praying, and these tough cab driver, cigarette smoking guys looking at them, and it's like, but with an attitude like they're not going to disturb them. It's like they're making a little space for these people, and it's like it's a beautiful little thing.
And he's such a good painter.
He's a really good painter. Well, he did the one painting of a gent seen from the back standing in front of a Jackson Pollock painting, and he did an incredibly credible job of faking a Pollock.
Right.
But he admitted to bewilderment. But he was he was a real sweetheart, and he was not. He was liberal and tolerant of everybody.
Right.
And I just said that Rockwell is terrific, and it's getting too tedious to deny that.
That he what?
It's getting too tedious to deny that he's terrific.
Yeah.
He's not the new Titian, but the old one is still good.
Well, in the spirit of democracy, let's take a few questions from the audience, unless they get completely ridiculous. And we'll do that for about. We have mics. That's great, and we'll do that for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and that seems like a good. Like we put on a big show, mm-hmm. And we'll do our that dance with the music thing at the end. So if you have a question, I guess the thing would be to ask it. Mm-hmm. If you want to come up to the mic. Do we need the mic? Maybe we do. Someone's raising their hand.
Well, we can repeat the question.
I'll tell you what.
Do you think an artist's charisma lasts throughout time? So Andy Warhol was a very charismatic individual. Do you think his charisma extends throughout time? If people in the future, 100 years from now, will know he was a very charismatic individual?
Can you all hear the question? Okay.
Well, Andy Warhol's charisma last forever.
Everybody who has let me just interrupt. Everybody who has a question should go and stand in front of that mic, and that way we'll do it. But
well, Andy Warhol's charisma last forever. Yes. No. I don't know.
Well, if you look back, I think it's not a question for me really, but a lot of artists with charisma, they're like Caravaggio, right? He's not known for his charisma.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's known, but his paintings really stand the test of time.
Yeah, well, he was kind of, he was cool. I mean, he killed people and shit. But
yeah, we love that in our artists.
But also, artists have fallen in and out of fashion. But by the way, I think Rembrandt is an interesting case to me in it because of the narrative element. I mean, Rembrandt has never had a day in history that he wasn't regarded as supreme. But he isn't mentioned very much in the 20th century,
right?
Because he is narrative, and narrative was the boogeyman, in the 20th century. And Picasso was his biggest fan. Anyway.
Yes.
You sort of made reference to collecting, but I was wondering, what have you both pursued in your own collecting, and what are your favorite pieces from your personal collections?
Well. Did you hear that? It's a collecting question, which it's a collecting question. What have I guess I pursued? You're not really a collector.
I'm poor.
Yeah. But the night's not really about me, and I have a very eclectic taste. You've seen it. It's 19th century to 20th century to 21st century, and so I wouldn't even know where to start. I started collecting 19th century American paintings at Hudson River School, and I went to 20th century American modern, and I have, it's odd, Western paintings. It's crazy. It's crazy. It makes no sense. But it'd just be a big waste of time for me to talk about it, except I do have photos. Can you show? Well, let's see. It was that first Rembrandt. That's one.
But actually, I've always said that if I had money, I'd be a collector in a minute, and stop writing criticism because writing. I mean, the few times I've actually been able to buy anything, writing a check is so much more sincere than writing a review because it hurts. I mean, you think I'm crazy if I don't mean this,
There's a question over here. We have two mics. Great. We have 2 lines. We have a lot of questions. But we'll only do this for like 15 minutes. In fact, let's say that's it. Okay?
For both of you, how important would you say is the artist's intention in terms of how much you like a piece of art?
By the way, I have a good quote for you.
Well, I mean, I think it's yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're looking at the realization, and you think, if this is the answer, what was the question? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be a good intention. I mean, it's like it helps if you trust that the person means it and isn't just messing around.
Let me read you back your own quote.
Oh, good.
Unless you were on to something good.
No.
I hope always to keep in mind that I'm unqualified to understand the work of artists in the way that they do. However, I can understand it in a way that they don't, as myself, whoever that may be on a given occasion. I think that's a perfect answer. I mean, I talk to artists, and whose work I love, and they tell me what it's about, and I go, really?
No.
I wish you hadn't told me.
No, I mean, there are exceptions. There are artists who are, have a critical, talent or literary talent that goes along with it, but it's rare. And I think, basically, you know, I shut up when they're painting, and they should shut up when I'm talking. So, and it's a division of labor, and everything goes.
Good question. Okay.
Thank you very much for speaking with us tonight. My name's Allison, and I have two questions. The first is, how did you two meet? And the second is, Mr. Schjeldahl, how did you feel about being represented in Mr. Martin's book, An Object of Beauty?
Oh, no, I was in his book.
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, no, it made me very happy, and it particularly made my wife Brooke Alderson very happy.
Oh, she's in it. That's right.
Yeah, well, that's anyway.
I don't remember how we met. I just don't.
I don't either.
It wasn't at a dance, was it?
No, I was standing alone, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just don't remember. Probably at a
Well, mutual friends. I mean,
Yeah.
and you get really old and stay in the same place, and you eventually meet most people.
Sorry, I don't have good answers. Yeah.
Okay, so
We'll go over here. Yes.
Hi. My question is about an artist like Michelangelo, which leads to a second question, which is, there are artists who create out of their own want to create, and then there are artists like Michelangelo who are commissioned and are incredible because they cross so many mediums. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
I'll jump on that. I think one of the real tragedies, wreckages of art, particularly in the last 50, 60 years, is that is the initiative that is assumed to artists, that artists have to decide what to do. I don't think artists are necessarily any better than anybody else at deciding what to do. They're about how it's done. I mean, you know, Tintoretto didn't decide which saint to paint on which ceiling. Okay, for San Rocco in Venice, it worked out very well. All right, I think and I think that having to decide what to do is really a problem for artists, and they do have to, because we simply have no authority that's smart enough and strong enough to direct what artists do, which is a good thing. But democracy is not wonderful for art. I mean, tyrannies, you know, when the tyrant is smart enough, are the best. What was I going to say? Anyway, leave it at that.
Why do you think there aren't more modern artists that cross mediums like?
Well, I think that you know, great artists have to, in this situation, have to have a kind of extra talent, a kind of double jointedness or something. That is, I think, and what's incredible about Warhol is, I think, it feels commissioned. You know, his work feels commissioned. It almost feels like the zeitgeist, the age, history said, Andy, do this. Well, by the way, of course, you know, when 61, 62, and he thought there was this new thing happening, he ran around offering people money to tell them what to do, you know, and one of them said, you like money, paint money. So he painted money. That was pretty good. Didn't really work out. I don't know if anyone suggested the Coke bottle, but it's, you know, there's a sense that if your commission doesn't come from a patron, it comes from the age, it comes from the air, it comes from God or your dealer.
Thank you.
This is a two-part question. I was wondering if you know about the Barnes collection outside of Philadelphia, and what do you think about it being moved, the controversial move of moving it inside the city of Philadelphia into a modern space instead of where it was originally intended to be exhibited by Dr. Barnes?
Did you hear that question?
About the Barnes?
It was about the Barnes collection and what Peter
outside of Philadelphia.
thinks of it being moved.
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I mean, it's you know, it's you know, one of those things that is a great collection, completely eccentric but wonderful hanging. You know, it's very bizarre. But but it's one of those things where there's only one of them, anywhere, and 1 minus 1 equals none of those, and I don't know. I'm going to wait and see how they install it. I mean, I think that they're trying to reproduce some of the installation in the downtown museum. That sounds like maybe the worst of both worlds or something. It's like necrophilic, but I mean, just take the paintings and put them up, and we'll look at them. But also Barnes was a horrible guy, and he left these horrible conditions, and he pissed everybody off in Philadelphia, and the heirs, the trustees of it played it very badly. It was a political disaster, But if they asked me, I'd say don't move it, and in fact, I did say don't move it, and you see the result.
All right, we'll take one last question, and we'll take one last question.
Thank you. This is coming from certainly not an art critic or expert, just a history teacher. Your commentary on Rockwell, and for both you guys. I always looked at Rockwell not in the same category as Picasso or Schjeldahl or Warhol, any of them. More of a commentary on Americana culture and their values. And looking at the picture we got up there, it's not as an artistic work, but more of a representation. And actually, Mr. Barnett, it actually relates to your primary career in America. What he was commenting on is how people try to emulate movie stars and people they see on TV or whatever and everything like that. So when I don't look at them as more of Rockwell as an artist, more as a commentator. And maybe that was when Rembrandt back in 200 years ago was the same way and whatever. Both of you guys want to comment on that if you don't mind. Does it make sense?
I think it's just the point that he was an illustrator, and like you say, that like Peter said, everything is made clear. There's no.
The story is detachable. This thing it doesn't have to be that good. It's like that's the nice thing about Warhol. It's also like Disney. I mean, American culture industry. It's like at the high end. It doesn't have to be that good. I mean, but it's incredibly good. So that improves your day a little bit.
All right. We have enjoyed, first of all, ourselves. And we have enjoyed talking in front of you. A big applause for Mr. Schjeldahl, one of the great art critics and essayists. And thank you all very much. Good night.